Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some faces are not meant to be remembered. Tonight we unseal a record that officially does not exist. Case File 734. The suppressed dossier of an individual documented across 7 decades, without aging a single day. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some faces are not lost to time. They are simply waiting in its pages. Narrator. The Obsidian archive is a place for stories that linger in the margins of history. The whispers, the redacted files, the questions that refuse to be silenced. Tonight we open a file that should not exist. A collection of anomalies, of impossible moments, all centered around a single, unchanging face. Our story begins in the winter of 1944, the Ardennes forest. A landscape of frozen mud and shattered trees, the stage for one of the bloodiest engagements of the Second World War, the Battle of the Bulge. Amidst the chaos and desperation, the U.S. Army Signal Corps documented the conflict, capturing images of exhaustion, fear, and fleeting moments of camaraderie. Most of these photographs are exactly what you'd expect, historical records of men at war. But one is different. Narrator. This photograph, designated SC-198244, was unearthed from the National Archives by military historian Dr. Alistair Finch in 2003. He was researching divisional patches of the 101st Airborne. At first glance, it shows a group of GIs taking a brief respite from the fighting. But look closer. Here, standing slightly apart from the others. While his companions slump with the physical and mental weight of combat, this man is perfectly still. His posture is relaxed, not fatigued. His uniform, while appropriate for the era, bears no insignia. No rank, no unit patch, nothing to identify him, but it's his eyes that truly set him apart. They aren't looking at the photographer. They aren't scanning the horizon for danger. They are fixed on something beyond the frame, with an expression not of fear or weariness, but of profound, unsettling knowledge. A quiet observer in the heart of the storm. Dr. Finch cross-referenced every known roster of every Allied unit operating in that sector. He found no record of this individual, no enlistment papers, no dog tag issuance, no after-action reports mentioning an unidentified observer. The man is a ghost, a cipher. For years, the photo was dismissed as a curiosity. Perhaps he was a member of the OSS or a foreign liaison whose records were sealed. Plausible explanations, but they don't account for the feeling one gets when looking at him. The sense of profound dislocation, that he does not belong in that time and place. He is in the moment, but not of it. This single image would be a compelling mystery on its own, a historical enigma destined for academic debate and forum threads. But what the world didn't know, what Dr. Finch couldn't have possibly known, was that this was not a one-time anomaly. It was the beginning of a pattern. This face, unchanged, unaged, and utterly unidentifiable, would surface again. And each time, it would appear at a hinge point of history, a silent witness to the events that shape our world. The man in the snow was just the first piece of an impossible puzzle. Narrator. 4 years after the Battle of the Bulge, the world had changed. The fragile alliance that defeated Nazism had fractured, replaced by the icy tension of the Cold War. The new front line was Berlin, a city divided, where the Soviet Union had blockaded all land and water access to the Western-controlled sectors. The Allied response was an unprecedented logistical feat: the Berlin airlift. For nearly a year, American and British planes flew over 200,000 flights, delivering vital supplies to over 2 million people. It was a symbol of hope and defiance, meticulously documented by newsreel cameras for a global audience. These reels, stored for decades in the German Bundesarchive, were recently digitized in ultra-high definition, revealing details previously lost to the grain of old film stock. And in that digitization process, an analyst cataloging footage from Tempelhof Airport in 1948 noticed something that sent a chill down their spine. Narrator: there, among the ground crew and German civilians watching a C-54 Skymaster unload its cargo of flour and coal, a man in a simple trench coat. He isn't cheering. He isn't working. He is watching. Still, composed, it's him. The same face from the Ardennes forest. Not a day older. The same calm, analytical expression. The same feeling of profound detachment. When placed side by side, the comparison is undeniable. Facial recognition algorithms, programs used by intelligence agencies to track targets across years, return a match probability exceeding 99.9%. It is the same person. But how? The man in the 1944 photograph should be in his late 20s or early 30s. By 1948, he should show some sign of aging, of the passage of time. But there is nothing. The lines on his face are identical. The intensity in his eyes is unchanged. He has been perfectly preserved, a human constant in a world of turmoil. This sighting changes everything. The anomaly of 44 is no longer an isolated incident. It is now the first point in a deeply disturbing timeline. He is not just a soldier. He appears in different contexts, wearing different clothes, yet is always the same. He is a chameleon who never changes his face. This discovery, made quietly within archival circles, began to attract clandestine attention. A heavily redacted memo, allegedly originating from the fledgling Central Intelligence Agency in 1951, refers to an unidentified, recurring, observational asset. It notes 2 confirmed sightings: Sector 7, Ardennes 1944, and Operation Vittles, Berlin 1948. The memo raises a critical question. Is he one of ours, or one of theirs? Or is he something entirely new to the game of espionage? The answer, it seemed, was far more complex than any Cold War analyst could imagine. They had identified a ghost, a phantom who walked through the most critical moments of the 20th century, and they had absolutely no idea who or what he was. Narrator: when a mystery cannot be solved, it is given a name, a designation. In the quiet, windowless offices of global intelligence, the man with the unchanging face became a legend. A ghost story told by grizzled case officers to intimidate new recruits. But he was more than a story. He was a file. A thin manila folder passed from hand to hand, from agency to agency, across decades. It contained blurry photographs, witness sketches, and speculative reports typed on onion skin paper. The file had no official number. It existed outside of any official record. It had only a single, chilling codename: Traveler. Narrator: the Traveler file, according to whistleblowers and leaked fragments, was a collaborative secret shared by enemies. The CIA, MI6, the KGB, all had their own annexes. Each agency initially believed he was an agent of the other, a master of disguise. But as sightings accumulated, that theory began to crumble. A blurry photograph from Budapest during the 1956 Hungarian Revolution shows a man matching his description watching Soviet tanks roll through the streets. A witness sketch provided by a Stasi informant places him near the Brandenburg Gate as the first sections of the Berlin Wall are erected in 1961. Always observing, never interfering. The most alarming consistency was the biological impossibility. He never aged. A purported CIA psychological profile from 1959 reads, "Subject exhibits no discernible signs of aging across a 15-year observation window. This is not believed to be a case of multiple identical agents, but a single individual. Standard explanations are insufficient. His presence correlates with events of high geopolitical or technological significance. Motive is unknown. Allegiance is unknown. He functions less as an agent and more as a constant. A piece of the landscape that should not be there." The name Traveler was chosen deliberately. It was a double entendre. While he traveled across geography, some analysts in the file's deepest, most classified sections began to speculate on a more radical form of movement. A fringe theory, dismissed by the top brass but impossible to ignore, suggested he was traveling through time. The report continues. Hypothesis. Subject may be an observer from a future epoch or an alternate dimension. This would account for the lack of aging and his prescient appearances at historical flashpoints. It would also explain his non-interference doctrine. He is not here to change events, but merely to witness them. This theory, however outlandish, led to a terrifying new protocol. A directive was issued across all participating agencies. If sighted, operatives were ordered to disengage. Do not approach. Do not attempt to detain. Observe, document, and report. The traveler was now considered a force of nature, a temporal paradox, whose capture or interference could have unimaginable consequences. He was no longer a person of interest. He was a fundamental mystery of the universe, walking in plain sight. And his most significant appearance was yet to come. Narrator, November 22nd, 1963, Dallas, Texas. A day of national trauma seared into the collective memory. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy in Dealey Plaza was one of the most documented events in human history. Dozens of cameras, both professional and amateur, captured the tragedy from multiple angles. For over half a century, researchers, investigators, and conspiracy theorists have scoured this mountain of evidence, deconstructing every frame, identifying nearly every face in the crowd. Nearly. Narrator. In the background of the lesser-known photographs, away from the immediate horror on Elm Street, stands a familiar figure. He is partially obscured by the shadows of a large oak tree, standing near the infamous grassy knoll. It is him, the traveler. He is wearing a dark suit, fitting for the era. But his face is the same as it was in the Ardennes snow, nearly 20 years earlier. Unchanged, unaged, unreadable. While the world around him is descending into panic and chaos, he is an island of absolute stillness, and his focus is terrifyingly specific. He is not looking at the presidential motorcade. He is looking up, his gaze directed towards the 6th floor window of the Texas School Book Depository. It's as if he knew where the shot would come from, as if he was there not to see the president, but to witness the mechanism of history turning on its brutal axis. In the seconds after the shots, as people run for cover or fall to the ground, he does not move. He simply watches, a silent sentinel at the death of a king. This sighting is the most profound and disturbing of all. His presence at the Battle of the Bulge or the Berlin airlift could be interpreted as observing geopolitical shifts. But Dallas, this was different. This was intimate. It was an assassination that spawned 1,000 questions. And here was the one man who might hold the answers, hiding in plain sight. He appears in no other photographs from that day. As federal agents and police swarmed Dealey Plaza, sealing it off, he was gone. He melted back into the shadows from which he came. Within the clandestine community tracking his movements, this appearance triggered a panic. A heavily redacted CIA cable, dated November 23, 1963, allegedly reads, "Traveler confirmed Dallas, position 112263, non-interference protocol held, asset has gone dark. Repeat, asset is dark." He had vanished. His presence at the nexus of modern America's deepest wound raises the ultimate question. Was he merely an observer? A chronicler of our most pivotal moments? Or was he something more? A gatekeeper? A guardian? Or simply a ghost, forever bound to walk the corridors of our past? The file on the traveler remains open because one question haunts investigators more than any other. Where and when will he appear next? Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. The year is 1968. The city is Saigon, a pressure cooker of political intrigue, espionage, and the ever-present shadow of war. Amid the chaos of the Tet Offensive, amidst the frantic dispatches and the desperate scramble for intelligence, a file was compiled. It was never meant to be a formal investigation. It was an anomaly file, a collection of loose threads tucked away in a dusty cabinet at the American Embassy, designated only by a simple label, the bystander. This collection of documents would later become known to a select few as the Saigon dossier. It provides yet another chillingly clear snapshot of the man who shouldn't exist. The dossier begins not with a photograph, but with a field report from a CIA case officer, heavily redacted, of course. The report details a clandestine meeting between a North Vietnamese informant and a South Vietnamese double agent. It was a high-stakes exchange, one that could have turned the tide of a regional conflict. The meeting took place in a crowded Cholon market, the air thick with the smell of spices and fear. The report notes a third party, an Occidental male, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, completely out of place for the climate and the location. He was observed standing near a noodle stall, simply watching. He wasn't part of either agent's surveillance detail. He wasn't a known asset. He was just there. The report notes his unnerving calm as a firefight erupted nearby, a common occurrence, yet one that sent everyone else scrambling for cover. He did not flinch. He simply turned his head, observed the chaos for a moment, and then returned his gaze to the meeting. He was an anchor of stillness in a sea of pandemonium. But the most significant part of the dossier is a series of photographs taken by a French photojournalist, developed from a roll of film he thought was ruined. The images are grainy, damaged by the humidity, but they are clear enough. They depict the chaotic evacuation from the rooftop of the Pittman apartment building in 1975. And there, standing near the back of the crowd on the roof, is the same man. He is not panicked. He is not trying to board a helicopter. He is looking directly at the camera. His face, the same face from the 1941 bridge opening, from the 1915 trench photograph, is unmistakable. He appears to have not aged a single day, The dossier contains analysis reports attempting to identify him. They ran his image against every known intelligence database of the era. The results were negative. No matches for spies, diplomats, journalists, or aid workers. It was as if he had materialized out of thin air. The final entry in the dossier is a handwritten note from the original case officer, scribbled years after the fact. It reads, "We checked everyone. We looked for ghosts. We should have been looking for the historian." What did he mean by that? Was this man not an active participant, but a chronicler? A witness to history's most pivotal and often most tragic moments? The Saigon dossier doesn't provide answers. It only deepens the enigma, placing our impossible man at the heart of another of the 20th century's bloodiest conflicts. A silent, unchanging spectator to the follies of mankind. Anomalies, when they repeat, form a pattern, and patterns demand investigation. By the late 1970s, the scattered sightings of our subject had accumulated beyond the point of coincidence. The Saigon dossier, the Kennedy file, the World War I photographs, these were no longer isolated curiosities. They were data points. And someone, deep within the labyrinth of the United States intelligence community, had started connecting them. This led to the covert formation of one of the most secret and esoteric task forces in American history, Project Kronos. Its existence is denied to this day. Any official inquiry hits a brick wall of declassification exemptions and national security clauses. But through leaked documents and the testimony of those who can no longer stay silent, we have pieced together its story. Project Kronos was officially sanctioned in 1978 under the umbrella of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Its mandate was simple, yet impossibly complex: to investigate the recurring appearances of an unidentified male subject across multiple historical periods and geographical locations. They were, in essence, tasked with investigating a ghost. The team was small, hand-picked, and operated out of a sub-basement at Fort Meade. It was a motley crew: a grizzled Cold War cryptanalyst, a brilliant but eccentric historian from DARPA, a quantum physicist on loan from Los Alamos, and a specialist in forensic photography. Their budget was a black hole, siphoning funds from unrelated projects to avoid oversight. Their first task was to build a definitive timeline. They scoured archives from around the world: the Stasi archives in East Germany, MI6 records in London, even KGB files obtained through back channels. They used nascent digital technology to scan and enhance photographs, running early facial recognition algorithms that took weeks to process a single image. The results that came back were staggering. The man wasn't just in the photos we've discussed. He was in the background of a 1936 Nazi rally in Nuremberg. He was visible in a crowd shot during the 1956 Hungarian Revolution. He was captured on film standing near the Checkpoint Charlie standoff in 1961. Always the same man, always the same age, always a passive observer. The project team began to call him the Zelig, after the fictional Leonard Zelig, a human chameleon who appeared at major historical events. But unlike Zelig, our man never interacted. He never blended in. He stood out. The project's internal memos, of which only a few scorched pages have ever been recovered, speak of a growing sense of dread among the team. They started to question the nature of their reality. Was he a time traveler? An immortal? A psychological projection? The physicist on the team proposed a radical theory: that he was a temporal echo, a glitch in the fabric of space-time, where a single individual's existence is imprinted across multiple points in the timeline. The project ran for 3 years. In 1981, it was abruptly terminated. The official reason cited was a conclusive lack of actionable intelligence. All files were ordered to be sealed for 150 years. All personnel were debriefed, forced to sign lifelong non-disclosure agreements under threat of treason, and reassigned to mundane posts. But the story doesn't end there. The project was shut down not because they found nothing, but because they found something they couldn't comprehend. And, more importantly, couldn't control. For decades, the story of Project Kronos remained buried under layers of classification. But secrets, like bodies, have a way of surfacing. We were contacted by an individual who claimed to be the lead historian for the project. For their safety, we will refer to them only as Witness A. Their voice has been altered. Their face will not be shown. What you are about to hear is their first-hand account of what happened inside that Fort Meade sub-basement. You have to understand, we weren't just looking at old photos. We thought we were at first. It was an academic exercise, a historical puzzle. We called him the Watcher. It felt safer, less personal. We had him on a corkboard, a web of red string connecting Berlin to Saigon, Dallas to Flanders Fields. It was the largest, most impossible conspiracy board you've ever seen. But then we got the film reels. Surveillance footage. The agency had been sitting on it for years, misfiled. It was from the Cuban Missile Crisis, October 1962. Standard long-lens surveillance of the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. And there he was, standing across the street. For 3 days, he just stood there, watching the embassy doors. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't move, except to turn his head. People would walk by, and it was like they couldn't see him. They'd adjust their path to walk around him without seeming to consciously notice him. A bubble of ignorance. That's when the academic exercise ended. That's when the fear started. This wasn't a man who happened to be in the background. This was a man with a purpose. We just couldn't figure out what it was. The physicist, a brilliant man named Dr. Eris Thorne, he had this theory about quantum entanglement and observation. He said that maybe, just maybe, history itself is unstable until it's observed by a fixed point. He suggested the Watcher was that fixed point. A sort of cosmic anchor, ensuring events unfold as they are supposed to. It sounded insane. But the more we looked, the more it made a terrifying kind of sense. He was always present at a fulcrum point, a moment where history could have gone one way or another. The project was shut down after the incident with the satellite imagery. We were using a new KH-11 reconnaissance satellite to look at a Soviet naval base. As the satellite passed over, we directed it to an old, abandoned lighthouse on the coast, a place of no strategic value. It was a long shot, based on a cryptic note in a 19th century ship's log we'd found. And there he was, standing on the walkway of the lighthouse, staring directly up at the satellite's lens. He knew we were looking. He looked right at us, from 100 miles up. The next day, the project was terminated. The official report said we were wasting assets. But we all knew the truth. We weren't the ones conducting the investigation. We were the ones being observed. The man exists in photographs, in films, in eyewitness reports from credible observers. He is one of the most documented individuals of the 20th century. And yet, in the physical world, he is a complete and total ghost. This is the central paradox of our subject. the contradiction that drove the analysts of Project Kronos to the brink of madness. For every piece of visual evidence that proves his existence, there is a corresponding void in the physical record. He leaves no trace. Consider the 1941 photograph at the South Fork Bridge. Investigators at the time, intrigued by his modern dress, attempted to identify him. They interviewed dozens of people who were there that day. No one remembered seeing him. It's as if he was visible only to the camera lens, a phantom on the celluloid. In the Saigon dossier, the CIA case officer reported that the man was drinking from a glass at the noodle stall. When the area was secured after the firefight, the stall was examined. Every cup and glass was accounted for. There was no extra glass. No fingerprints that didn't belong to the stall owner or his family. It was a dead end. This pattern repeats with chilling consistency. In the surveillance footage from the Cuban Missile Crisis, he stands on the pavement for 3 days. After he vanishes from the frame, a forensics team, dispatched by the nascent Project Kronos, swept the area. They found no shoe prints where he stood, no fallen hair, no skin cells, no fibers from his dark suit. In a world where every human being sheds around 40,000 skin cells per minute, he shed none. He occupied space, but he did not interact with it in any measurable physical way. This lack of evidence led Project Kronos down some very strange theoretical paths. Was he a tulpa, a being manifested from concentrated thought? Was he a product of mass psychogenic illness? A shared hallucination at moments of great historical stress? Or was the explanation even more profound? Dr. Eris Thorne, the project's physicist, proposed in his final unpublished paper that the man was not made of matter as we understand it. He theorized the man was composed of informational particles, a projection from another dimension or a future time, capable of being perceived and recorded, but lacking true physical substance. He was, in Thorne's words, an image with a shadow, but no body. This theory might explain how he could appear in a locked room, as one unverified MI6 report from 1953 claims, or how he could stand unharmed amidst a firefight. He wasn't there to be harmed. He was pure observation. This raises a terrifying question. If he is not a physical being, then what is he? And what is the purpose of this relentless, silent observation? The absence of evidence becomes, in itself, the most damning evidence of all. It proves that we are not dealing with a man. We are dealing with a phenomenon that obeys a different set of physical laws, a different reality. And he is here, in our world, watching. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some faces are not meant to be remembered. They are meant to be warnings. The trail of our impossible man, the phantom who walks through history, had been sporadic, documented in the chaotic aftermaths of war and the quiet anxieties of post-war society. But in 1961, he didn't just appear in the background. He stepped onto the most scrutinized stage on Earth, Berlin, a city cleaved in two by ideology, a raw nerve of the Cold War, where every shadow was suspect and every face was recorded. This is where he made his most audacious and inexplicable appearance, a cameo at Checkpoint Charlie. The evidence is not a fleeting glimpse, but a stark, undeniable record, buried deep within the archives of those who mastered the art of watching. The East German Stasi. File BSTU MFS AU 75762. A surveillance report on a suspected CIA asset. Buried in the appendix is a series of photographs. The target is a German academic. But behind him, standing near a concrete barrier, is a face that should not be there. It is him. The same man from the trenches of the Somme, the same man from the Saigon dossier. Unchanged, not a day older. His expression is calm, observant, utterly out of place amidst the palpable tension of the checkpoint. The Stasi photographer, obsessed with his primary target, likely never gave the man a second thought. But someone did. A marginal note, written in neat, precise German, reads, "Unidentified. Refer to Index Omega. Not on watch list." Index Omega. To this day, researchers and historians have found no official record of an Index Omega within the Stasi archives. It is a ghost file, a reference to a category of information so secret it was scrubbed even from their own meticulous records. What did they know? The CIA archives are no more forthcoming. A heavily redacted contact report from the same week mentions an unclassified human variable, or UHV, observed near the Friedrichstrasse crossing point. The report states the UHV made non-hostile, passive contact with an unknown individual, exchanging a small object before melting into the crowds of East Berlin. The description of the UHV, where it isn't blacked out by a censor's pen, matches our man perfectly. Here, at the epicenter of a world defined by two opposing, unshakable truths, he existed as a third, impossible variable. He wasn't a spy for the East or the West. He was something else, an entity that could move between these two hermetically sealed worlds, as if the walls, the guards, and the guns simply did not apply to him. The Cold War was a conflict built on information and control. Every citizen was a data point. Every movement was tracked. Yet, this man defied that system entirely. He was a living paradox in a city that had no room for them, a ghost who left a footprint in the most heavily guarded place on the planet. After the impossible sighting at Checkpoint Charlie, the trail goes utterly cold. For nearly 20 years, from the early 1960s to the dawn of the 1980s, the man vanishes. There are no more Stasi photographs, no more cryptic CIA memos, no more anomalous reports from shaken officials. He is gone. This silence, this absolute void in the record, is perhaps more unsettling than any of his documented appearances. An absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. In the world of intelligence, a sudden, complete silence often means one of two things: a successful termination or a successful cover-up on a global scale. Did he simply cease to exist? Or did the powers that watch the world decide, in a moment of unprecedented and unspoken agreement, to stop looking? To stop documenting? We must consider the era. The 1960s and 70s were a time of proxy wars, covert operations, and a deep-seated paranoia that the enemy could be anywhere. But what if both the CIA and the KGB stumbled upon a variable that wasn't an enemy, but an anomaly that threatened their very understanding of reality? There are whispers in the intelligence community, stories told by retired analysts in hushed tones of Project Chimera or the Zero Index. These were allegedly joint back-channel programs, unthinkable during the Cold War, designed not to track threats, but to track and suppress information about phenomena that fell outside conventional explanation, things that broke the rules. The primary purpose of these programs wasn't to understand, but to erase, to scrub the official record, to discredit witnesses, to ensure that the fragile consensus of reality upon which all their power was built remained intact. In this context, the 2-decade silence makes a terrifying kind of sense. It wasn't that he disappeared, It's that the global apparatus of surveillance was deliberately pointed away from him. It was a gentleman's agreement between mortal enemies, a secret détente, to ignore the ghost in the machine. Imagine the scene: a clandestine meeting in a neutral city, like Geneva or Vienna. A KGB colonel and a CIA station chief, men who have spent their lives trying to destroy one another, slide a single, shared file across the table. It contains the photo from the Somme, the report from Saigon, the surveillance still from Berlin. No words are needed. They both know that the man in the file represents a truth more dangerous than any nuclear weapon. An agreement is made. All existing files are to be reclassified to levels beyond top secret, effectively burying them forever. All active surveillance is ceased. The anomaly is to be ignored, forgotten, willed out of existence. The silence was not an ending. It was an act of deliberate, coordinated amnesia. But history is a patient hunter, and as the world transitioned from analog to digital, the ghost they tried to bury was about to find a new way to haunt them. The silence was broken not by a spy's camera or a classified memo, but by the sterile hum of a mainframe computer in the early 1990s. As the analog world of paper files and microfiche was being painstakingly digitized, our man reemerged. He wasn't a person anymore. He was a data point, a ghost in the nascent machine of the internet. The incident occurred at a secure data migration facility, a place designed to convert sensitive paper archives into digital records for the National Security Agency. The year was 1992. During a routine data transfer, a single file became corrupted. It was a string of junk data, a meaningless cascade of ones and zeros. But protocol dictated that a technician manually attempt to reconstruct it. What the technician found was not a Cold War document or a personnel file. It was an image, a security camera still from a government data center, time-stamped just 3 days prior. Standing in a server room, amidst blinking lights and reels of magnetic tape, was our man. He was looking directly at the camera, and he had not aged a single day since he was photographed at Checkpoint Charlie 31 years earlier. This was a new kind of terror for the intelligence community. A grainy photograph can be dismissed. A witness can be discredited. But a digital file is different. It can be copied, analyzed, and cross-referenced at the speed of light. And that's when the true anomaly began to reveal itself. When they ran the image through a primitive facial recognition program, the system didn't just find a match, it broke. The program, designed to compare a face against a limited database, began pulling images it shouldn't have had access to. Scanned archival photos from decades past, including the Somme and Berlin files that were supposedly buried under layers of classification. It was as if his image acted as a key, unlocking files that were meant to stay hidden forever. The system returned a logical paradox, a 100% match to multiple individuals with different names, different nationalities, and dates of birth spanning nearly a century. He wasn't just in the system. He was a virus within it. A leaked internal memo from a DARPA research project, codenamed Echelon, described the phenomenon as a recursive data paradox and labeled the subject UHV1, Uncatalogued Human Variable 1. The memo stated that any attempt to delete or quarantine the UHV1 files resulted in their spontaneous duplication across secure, air-gapped networks. Erasing him only made him stronger, more pervasive. The man who had once haunted the physical world now haunted the digital one. He had become an information phantom, a glitch in the very code the world was using to build its future. He was no longer a person to be tracked, but an error in the logic of reality itself. And he had found a permanent home in the global network's eternal memory. The post-9/11 world was built on a new kind of certainty, the certainty of identity. In an age of unprecedented global surveillance, biometrics became the ultimate tool of control. Your fingerprints, the iris of your eye, the unique sequence of your DNA. These were the infallible markers of you. No one could hide. No one could be anonymous. No one except him. For the global security apparatus, the UHV-1 data ghost had now become a critical, unsolvable problem. He wasn't just a collection of anomalous old photos anymore. He was appearing in the modern world, and every interaction he had with the system created a paradox that threatened the very foundation of biometric science. Consider the evidence. In 2008, a man matching his description passes through a security checkpoint at Heathrow Airport. The facial recognition system, now infinitely more powerful than the program from the 90s, flags him instantly. It matches his face with perfect accuracy to dozens of files. The Berlin photo from 1961, the server room image from 1992, and a new sighting from a traffic camera in Hong Kong just 6 months prior. The paradox? The system's age progression algorithm estimates his age in every photo to be between 30 and 35. It is a mathematical impossibility. Security pulls him aside for secondary screening. His fingerprints are scanned. The system finds a perfect match, but not to a criminal record. It matches a latent print lifted by French authorities from a colonial administrator's desk in Hanoi in 1954. The prints are identical, with no discernible signs of aging in the ridge patterns, a biological impossibility. He is detained, but before a dedicated team can arrive, he is gone. A security blind spot, a momentary power flicker, and he has vanished from a locked room. This is the biometric paradox. Every piece of unique biological data he provides is both perfectly authentic and fundamentally impossible. A retinal scan captured in Dubai is flagged by the system as synthetic data, too perfect, too flawless to be organic, as if it were generated by an algorithm. A DNA sample, surreptitiously collected from a discarded coffee cup, comes back from the lab with a report that it is biologically pristine, lacking the expected somatic mutations of a living organism. It is the DNA of a theoretical human, not a real one. Biometrics is based on two principles: uniqueness and entropy. Every person is unique, and every person's body changes, ages, and decays in predictable ways. He satisfies the first principle but completely violates the second. He is a biometric anchor point, a fixed variable in a system built on flux. He is not a person to be identified. He is a living, breathing flaw in the science of identification itself. The question is no longer who he is, but what he is. Is he a glitch in our reality? Or is he proof of a set of rules we are not equipped to understand? Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some faces are not meant to be forgotten. They are meant to be inherited. For every photograph, for every piece of archival film we have examined, one constant remains: the face. Unchanged by war, unmarred by the passage of decades. How is this possible? The simplest explanation is often the most logical. But in the labyrinth of the Obsidian archive, simplicity is a luxury we cannot afford. However, let us begin there, with a theory grounded not in the supernatural, but in the chillingly deliberate nature of humanity itself. This is the theory of the unbroken lineage. The proposition is this: we are not looking at one man. We are looking at a succession of men, fathers, sons, grandsons, all meticulously bred and trained to be perfect facsimiles of one another. This is not about a simple family resemblance, the kind you might notice in an old photo album. This is about a systematic generational conspiracy to create a living constant, a recurring ghost in the annals of history. Imagine a secret society, an ancient family, or a clandestine organization whose sole purpose is to maintain a presence, an observer, across centuries. Their most guarded secret is not a doctrine or a treasure, but a bloodline. From birth, a chosen heir is groomed. His life is not his own, it is a continuation. He is taught to walk, talk, and think like his predecessor. His education would be a living history, filled with the direct experiences of the men who came before him, passed down through journals and private tutelage. He would learn the geopolitical landscape of the 1940s from the man who stood in the shadow of the Yalta Conference. He would understand the tension of Cold War Berlin from the man who watched the wall being built. Every mannerism, every subtle tick, every glint in the eye, all rehearsed, perfected, until the son becomes an echo of the father. The genetic component cannot be ignored. Generations of selective pairing could ensure the uncanny physical resemblance remains consistent. They would be, in essence, living doppelgangers, separated by time. But why? What is the purpose of such a monumental deception? Perhaps they are guardians of a secret, a truth so world-altering that it requires a perpetual, unchanging sentinel. Or perhaps they are chroniclers, assembling a private, unbiased history of humanity, a record untainted by the shifting perspectives of different authors. They are the living embodiment of the phrase, "History is written by the victors." Only in this case, they are the sole, silent writers. Think of the psychological toll. To live a life that is merely a copy, to know your own identity, is a mask worn over the face of your ancestors. Each man would be a living vessel for a singular, continuous consciousness. The organization behind this would need immense resources and absolute secrecy. They would be the true puppeteers, operating so far behind the curtain that no one even knows the curtain exists. This theory, while seemingly outlandish, grounds the phenomenon in human ambition and control. It suggests a plan so patient, so long-term, that it defies our modern understanding of time and legacy. We are not dealing with an immortal being, but something perhaps more terrifying. An immortal idea, worn by a succession of mortal men. If the unbroken lineage theory is a monument to patience and genetics, our second theory plunges us into the murky depths of covert technology and psychological warfare. This theory proposes that we are, in fact, looking at a single individual. Not an immortal, but a man who has mastered the art of stasis. A human chameleon who does not change his colors to blend in, but who forces the world to change around his static form. The central paradox is this. An agent of espionage, a spy, a ghost, traditionally relies on anonymity, on the ability to change faces like one changes a coat. Yet this man, our subject, retains the exact same face for over a century. Why? The answer may be that his face is not a vulnerability. It is a weapon. It's a calling card, left at the scene of history's greatest crimes and triumphs. He is a living piece of psychological operations, a myth deliberately cultivated to instill awe, fear, or obedience in a select few. To maintain the same appearance over such a long period would require technology far beyond the public domain. We are not talking about simple prosthetics or makeup. We are talking about something far more advanced, perhaps a classified bioregenerative therapy, a treatment available only to the highest echelons of a shadow government that halts the aging process at a cellular level. He is, for all intents and purposes, frozen in time, a man in his late 30s, forever. Consider the implications. He could be a handler, a control agent for deep cover operatives scattered across generations. For a spy who has been embedded in a foreign country for 30 years, whose own identity has begun to fray, the arrival of a handler who looks exactly as he did 3 decades prior would be a powerful symbol of the organization's enduring power and stability. The unchanging face becomes an anchor in a sea of deception. He is the one constant. His mission is not to gather intelligence in the traditional sense, but to be a message. His presence at a critical event is a signal to those in the know that their unseen masters are watching. His photograph, appearing in the archives, is a permanent record of their influence. He is the ultimate ghost in the machine, a human enigma whose very existence defies explanation, thereby granting his sponsors a quasi-mythical status. This human chameleon would be the most isolated individual on Earth. He would have no past, no family, no name. His original face, his original life, would have been scrubbed from existence, replaced by this single, perpetual identity. He is a tool, a sophisticated piece of equipment, and his psychological state would be a landscape of unimaginable loneliness. He watches empires fall and technologies rise, all while he remains the same. He is a prisoner of his own face. This theory forces us to confront the possibility of technologies hidden from public view, of clandestine sciences that can manipulate the very fabric of human biology. The question then becomes not, who is he, but who created him? And what is their ultimate goal? Theories can be debated endlessly, but paper, ink, and official government watermarks tell a different, more concrete story. Or at least they tell the parts that someone, somewhere, decided we were allowed to see. In the late 1970s, amidst a flurry of clandestine government programs exploring the fringes of human consciousness and theoretical physics, programs like Stargate and MKUltra, there was another far more secret project. It had no official name, but in the few declassified documents that have surfaced, it is referred to simply as the Witness Program. At its head was a brilliant, if eccentric, parapsychologist and historian named Dr. Evelyn Reed. Dr. Reed was tasked with investigating recurring anomalies in the historical record. Her recently unearthed files, obtained through a Freedom of Information request and almost comically redacted, paint a chilling picture. She wasn't hunting for a spy or a family of doppelgangers. She believed she was tracking a unique entity. In a report dated October 1978, she writes, "Subject, designated witness, appears in photographic and film evidence at intervals spanning, at present, 66 years. Standard aging markers are absent. Cellular degradation appears to be. His proximity to pivotal geopolitical events is statistically impossible to be coincidental." Reed's theory was radical. She proposed that Witness was not a time traveler in the conventional sense. He did not move through time. Rather, she hypothesized he was a chronostatic individual, a form of human or entity that acted as a temporal anchor. Time, in her view, flowed around him. He was a fixed point. Her reports grow more frantic, more obsessed. He does not interact. He does not interfere. He only observes. The question is not how he travels, but what he is documenting. The data he must have collected, the sheer volume of raw, unfiltered history he has personally seen is the single greatest intelligence asset in human. We must make contact. But contact was never made. In 1981, Dr. Reed was officially discredited. The final report on her work cites professional misconduct, fabrication of data, and acute paranoia. She was stripped of her credentials and vanished from the academic world. Her project was terminated, its files buried under layers of classification. But a private journal, found years later in a dusty archive, contained one final, terrifying entry. They think he's a man. They're wrong. They're trying to understand him in the context of our physics, our biology. It's like an ant trying to comprehend a skyscraper. I saw him again today, in a file from the Boer War. He is not traveling through time. Time is traveling through him. We are the ghosts in his reality. Dr. Reed's redacted reports and her subsequent disappearance suggest that someone within the corridors of power knows about this man, and they have taken extreme measures to keep that knowledge contained. We are not the first to follow this trail, but we may be the first to show you the fragments of truth they tried so desperately to bury. For decades, our subject was a ghost, found only in the fading chemistry of old photographs and the flicker of celluloid. He was a creature of the past, until July 7th, 2005. On that day, terror struck the heart of London. The 7/7 bombings were a moment of modern horror, capturing the world's attention. And in the chaotic aftermath, amidst the sirens, the smoke, and the panic, he reappeared. This time, he was not captured on a single, grainy film roll. He was captured by the ubiquitous, unforgiving gaze of the digital age. He was on CCTV from a bus station, on a bystander's digital camera near Tavistock Square, and in the background of a news report near Aldgate Station. In every image, the story is the same. While the world around him is a blur of motion, of people running for their lives, of first responders rushing towards danger, he is an island of absolute stillness. He stands, hands clasped either in front of or behind him, his expression not of fear, not of shock, but of calm, detached observation. He is not a victim, not a perpetrator, not a rescuer. He is simply present. The London sighting was a paradigm shift for researchers of this phenomenon. For the first time, we had high-resolution digital data. Facial recognition algorithms could be employed, cross-referencing the pixels from 2005 with the silver nitrate particles from a photograph taken in 1945. The result was a statistical match of over 99%. It was him, unaged, unchanged. We spoke with a former counterterrorism analyst for MI5, who agreed to speak only under the condition of absolute anonymity. His voice has been distorted. We flagged him within hours, the analyst said. In a crisis, you look for the calm ones, the ones who don't belong. This man, he was on feeds from 3 separate locations, over a period of 90 minutes. Impossible for a normal civilian. We ran his face. The system went crazy. It pulled up matches from our own archives, from CIA archives, even old KGB files. Photos from Berlin, Saigon, Cuba. It was the same man. The order came down from the top. Stand down. He is a non-person. Erase the flags. He wasn't a threat we were meant to neutralize. He was a fact we were meant to ignore. The age of total surveillance, which should have exposed him, seemed to have no effect. He doesn't hide from the cameras. He seems utterly indifferent to them, as if he knows they are there but understands they pose no threat to him. The London footage proved his continued existence, his silent march alongside our own history. But it also provided a new, terrifying clue that had been missed for nearly a century. A detail, hidden in plain sight across all the footage, so unsettling it forces us to reconsider every theory, every possibility. A detail that suggests he is not just an observer, but is waiting for something. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. For every piece of evidence we have uncovered, for every eyewitness account painstakingly recorded in this archive, there exists an equal and opposite force. A force not of nature, but of calculated, systematic denial. As the whispers about the unresolved subject grew louder throughout the latter half of the 20th century, the machinery of officialdom whirred to life with a single, chilling objective: to erase him from the conversation. This wasn't just ignoring the problem. It was an active campaign of intellectual and social warfare. We found references to it in a heavily redacted file, leaked from a now-defunct intelligence subcommittee. The file was codenamed Project Obscura. Its stated purpose was narrative containment of unsanctioned temporal phenomena, a sanitized, bureaucratic term for making a man disappear, not from physical space, but from accepted reality. The methods were as insidious as they were effective. First came the official statements. In 1978, following the now infamous photograph of the subject standing amidst the chaos of a New York City blackout, a Pentagon spokesman held a press conference. He calmly explained to the world that the figure was a well-documented case of simulacrum, a trick of light and shadow compounded by public anxiety. He presented charts, expert testimony from paid psychologists, and even a debunked version of the photo, subtly altered to look more like a mannequin. The media, in an era that still largely trusted its institutions, ran with the story. The man became a joke, a footnote, a conspiracy for the fringe. But what of the witnesses? Their fates were far more personal. Dr. Eris Thorne, a respected astrophysicist at Caltech, who reported seeing the subject observing the launch of Voyager 2 from a restricted area, found his career dismantled. Anonymous letters were sent to the university board questioning his mental stability. His funding was mysteriously cut. Within 2 years, he was relegated to teaching introductory physics at a community college, his reputation in tatters. We have a recording of his last known interview, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and despair. "They don't just tell you you're wrong," he said. "They make it so your entire life was wrong. They gaslight your reality until you are the ghost. And he is the one solid thing in the world." This pattern was repeated dozens of times. A pilot from the Royal Air Force who logged an encounter over the North Sea was grounded, diagnosed with combat fatigue, and forced into early retirement. A historian who discovered the subject's image in a 16th century woodcut was accused of academic fraud, his findings dismissed as a desperate bid for tenure. Project Obscura wasn't just about denial. It was about creating a quarantine around the truth, isolating anyone who touched it until they either fell silent or their voice was rendered meaningless. They weaponized credibility, turning it against those who dared to see what was right in front of them. The official story became the only story. And in the quiet hum of the world's consensus, the man in the background was allowed to continue his vigil, protected by the very systems that claimed he wasn't there. In the world of digital archaeology, there is always the hope of finding a Rosetta Stone, a single file that decodes the entire mystery. For a fleeting moment, we believed we had found it. The lead came from an anonymous source, a self-proclaimed archivist of last resort. The message contained only a string of coordinates and a complex encryption key. The coordinates pointed to a dead drop, a waterproof pelican case buried in a desolate stretch of the Mojave Desert. Inside was a single solid-state drive, cold to the touch. The decryption process was an ordeal, a week-long battle against cascading layers of security that seemed to learn and adapt as we worked. It was designed not just to protect data, but to resist the very act of being observed. When we finally broke through, we didn't find documents or text files. We found a single video file labeled only with a timestamp from 3 days prior. The file opened to a silent, stark white room. There were no visible doors or windows. The lighting was diffuse, sourceless. In the center of this impossible space stood the unresolved subject. This was the highest resolution image ever seen of him. He was dressed in his usual simple dark attire, but the clarity was unnerving. We could see the texture of the fabric, the faint lines on his hands. For the first time, he was not a passive observer in someone else's history. He was the subject of the recording. In front of him hovered a device that defied easy description. A lattice of shifting metallic shapes and dark energy, folding in on itself in a display of non-Euclidean geometry. He reached out, his movements calm and deliberate, and touched the object. The air in the video feed seemed to shimmer. The fabric of reality itself looked thin, distorted. And then, the unthinkable happened. He stopped. He slowly turned his head, breaking a decades-long pattern of silent observation, and looked directly into the camera, directly at us. In that moment, the file began to collapse. The screen fractured into a mosaic of glitching pixels. The audio, which had been silent, erupted into a single, piercing sine wave that resonated in our bones. We scrambled to save the data, to capture a single frame, but the file was actively destroying itself, overwriting its own code with gibberish. It was a digital self-destruct, a scorpion's sting. The process took less than 3 seconds. When it was over, the drive was wiped clean. But not before we saw it, the final frame. For a fraction of a second, the feed zoomed in on his face, or what we thought was his face. There were no discernible features, no eyes, no mouth, only a placid, smooth surface. But reflected in that surface, we saw a star field. Not a random scattering of light, but the constellations of an unknown sky. It was the last thing the archive recorded before the file consumed itself. We were left with nothing but a phantom image burned into our minds, and the chilling realization that we had not found a piece of evidence. We had tripped a silent alarm. There is a cost to staring into the abyss. But what happens when the abyss stares back and then follows you home? After the incident with the corrupted file, something changed. The investigation was no longer about retrieving and analyzing the past. It became about surviving the present. The phenomenon of the unresolved subject began to bleed out from the archival footage and into the lives of those who studied it. We started calling them proximity echoes. It began with small things, easily dismissed as stress or coincidence. One of our researchers, a data analyst named Elias, found that every digital clock in his apartment, his phone, his laptop, his microwave, would occasionally run backward for a few seconds before correcting itself. Another team member, a historian named Lena, began hearing the piercing audio tone from the corrupted file at random times, a phantom sound that no one else could perceive. She described it as the sound of a nerve ending. These were not hallucinations. They were shared, tangible experiences that seemed to center around our work. Equipment would fail without reason. Audio recordings of interviews would be wiped, replaced with hours of what sounded like faint, whispering static. We consulted with Dr. Julian Finch, a theoretical physicist whose work touches on information theory and quantum mechanics. He was hesitant to speak on the record, but he offered a terrifying hypothesis. "You're not dealing with a person in the conventional sense," he explained over an encrypted line. "You're dealing with a living piece of information, a self-perpetuating anomaly in the space-time data stream. By observing it, by collecting data on it, you are creating a quantum entanglement. The anomaly is now aware of you, and it is asserting its nature upon your local reality. These aren't hauntings. They are localized reality glitches." The idea was staggering. We weren't just being watched by government agencies. We were being observed by the subject itself, its very presence subtly rewriting the rules of our environment. The feeling of being watched became a constant companion. The sense that the man in the photographs was no longer confined to the frame, but was now standing just outside our own. It forces a question upon us, and now, upon you. As you watch this, have you noticed anything? A flicker in your peripheral vision you dismissed as a trick of the light? A strange sense of déjà vu? A moment that feels like it has already happened? Have you heard a familiar word repeated too many times to be a coincidence? The proximity echoes suggest that the unresolved subject is more than a man. He is a mimetic virus, and the knowledge of his existence is the method of transmission. You are now part of the archive, and you may find in the quiet moments to come that the archive is now a part of you. We have journeyed through fading photographs, classified documents, and corrupted data. We have followed a silent figure through the background of a century, a constant presence in a world of ceaseless change. And now, we find ourselves at the end of our current archive, left with a silence more profound than any answer we could have hoped for. So who or what is the man documented across multiple decades? The evidence provides no conclusions, only a spectrum of terrifying possibilities. Is he a time traveler, as some have suggested? A lonely observer, cursed to witness history without ever being able to touch it? His simple suit a uniform of perpetual mourning for a world he can only watch? Or is he something else entirely? An interdimensional being, whose reality intersects with ours at moments of great significance or trauma, drawn to these events like a moth to a flame. Perhaps he isn't a visitor at all, but a product of our own world, the result of a forgotten experiment in quantum physics, a man untethered from the normal flow of causality, now existing in all moments at once, a living ghost generated by science. The very agencies that deny his existence gave him a designation in their most secret files: the unresolved subject. The name is telling. Not the unknown subject or the unidentified subject. Unresolved. It implies a problem they have tried to solve. It suggests they have engaged with him, studied him, and ultimately failed to understand or contain him. This, perhaps, is the most frightening truth of all, that the most powerful organizations in the world are aware of this entity and are utterly powerless against it. Their discreditation campaigns are not a sign of control, but of fear. They are not hiding the truth from us. They are hiding from it themselves. The unresolved subject represents a fundamental breakdown in our understanding of the universe. He is a walking, silent paradox. He is the ultimate outlier in the dataset of human history. His purpose, if he has one, may be simply to exist as a question. A permanent reminder that we do not know all the rules of this reality. He is the figure in the shadows of our collective memory. The face we can never quite see. The archive on this subject will remain open, because he is still out there, in the grain of an old film, in the reflection of a skyscraper window, in the digital static between channels. The subject is never resolved. He's in the silence. He's in the code, always watching. Look closer.